In 2016, most people in Austin, Texas were talking about real estate, tech startups, and rising rents. Cryptocurrency was still a strange word that sounded complicated and risky. But for Daniel Reyes, it was an opportunity he believed only a few people truly understood. Daniel was not born rich. He grew up in a small two-bedroom apartment on the south side of the city. His father worked long shifts as a mechanic, and his mother was a school receptionist. Money was always tight, and Daniel learned early that financial security meant freedom. While other kids spent their afternoons playing video games, Daniel watched videos about stock markets and read online forums about investing. He was quiet, observant, and extremely patient. In high school, Daniel became known as the money kid. He started small businesses selling refurbished phones and fixing laptops for neighbors. He tracked every dollar in spreadsheets and constantly searched for new trends. When he went to college to study computer science, he spent more time reading about digital currencies than attending parties. One night in his dorm room, he discovered Bitcoin. At the time, it was still seen as an experiment, something used mostly by tech enthusiasts. But Daniel felt something click in his mind. The idea of a currency not controlled by banks fascinated him. He spent hours studying blockchain technology. He read white papers, watched interviews, and joined online communities where people debated the future of finance. While many students used their extra money for weekend trips, Daniel invested nearly all his savings into cryptocurrency. His friends told him he was crazy. His parents worried he was gambling away his future. But Daniel had confidence. He believed that technology always moved forward, and those who moved early would win. When Bitcoin's price began to rise in 2017, Daniel's small investment turned into something much bigger. He didn't panic when prices dropped. He didn't celebrate too much when they rose. He treated it like a long-term strategy. As other digital coins entered the market, Daniel carefully researched each one. Some investments failed, but many succeeded. By the end of 2018, Daniel was a millionaire. The sudden wealth changed his life overnight. He moved out of his parents' apartment and into a sleek, modern penthouse downtown. He bought designer suits and expensive watches. He began driving a matte black Lamborghini that turned heads wherever it went. But Daniel did not act like someone who had simply gotten lucky. He presented himself as a visionary. He started posting videos online explaining cryptocurrency in simple language. He used clear examples and calm explanations. Think of blockchain like a digital notebook that everyone can see but no one can erase, he would say with a friendly smile. His confidence attracted thousands of followers. Soon, he was invited onto podcasts and local news segments as a crypto expert. People admired him because he seemed relatable. He talked about growing up without money. He spoke about helping his parents pay off their debts. He said he wanted to teach ordinary people how to build wealth. His story inspired trust. As his audience grew, Daniel noticed something important. Many people wanted to invest in cryptocurrency, but they were afraid. They didn't understand digital wallets, private keys, or trading platforms. They were scared of making mistakes. Daniel realized he could offer something they needed: guidance. In 2019, he announced the creation of his own company, Novosphere. Novosphere was presented as a revolutionary crypto investment platform. Daniel claimed he and his small team had developed advanced trading algorithms that could analyze market trends faster than human traders. The company promised steady returns while protecting investors from extreme market crashes. Daniel described it as smart investing powered by artificial intelligence. The launch event was held in a rented conference hall filled with bright lights and large digital screens. Daniel stood on stage in a tailored suit, speaking with calm authority. He showed charts displaying past crypto gains. He explained risk management strategies. He assured the audience that their funds would be secured in cold storage wallets protected by multi-layer encryption. Most people in the audience did not fully understand the technical terms, but they understood Daniel. He seemed honest. He had already made millions. His lifestyle proved his success. Within weeks, Novosphere began receiving deposits. At first, it was small amounts from followers who trusted Daniel's advice. Then larger sums started coming in from professionals, retirees, and even small business owners. Word spread quickly across social media. Daniel's online presence became even more polished. He shared photos from luxury resorts and private jet terminals. He posted motivational quotes about financial freedom. His mansion on the edge of Austin became a symbol of modern success. The glass walls overlooked the city skyline, and the interior was filled with minimalist furniture and modern art. Despite the luxury, Daniel often spoke about humility. He said he remembered where he came from. He claimed his mission was to help others escape financial struggle just as he had. Behind the scenes, however, Novosphere was structured in a way few people truly understood. Daniel maintained tight control over the company's digital wallets. He insisted it was for security reasons. He rarely allowed others full access to financial records. Employees described him as focused and demanding, but not suspicious. As cryptocurrency markets continued to fluctuate, Novosphere reported steady gains. Investors received monthly statements showing profits. Testimonials flooded social media. People praised Daniel for changing their lives. Some invested their entire savings, believing they were part of the future of finance. By 2021, Daniel Reyes was not just a local success story. He was becoming a national name in the crypto world. Invitations to speak at conferences across the country filled his calendar. He appeared confident, always calm, always in control. But those closest to him noticed small changes. Daniel had become more private. He stopped sharing certain details online. He installed additional security cameras around his mansion. He canceled a few public appearances at the last minute, claiming scheduling conflicts. When asked about the future of Novosphere, Daniel would smile and say something mysterious. "We're about to change everything," he once told a podcast host. "The next step will shock people." In October 2021, he announced that a major upgrade to Novosphere was coming. Investors were excited. Some believed the company was preparing to launch its own cryptocurrency token. Others thought Daniel had developed a breakthrough trading system. The night before the big announcement, Daniel posted a short message to his millions of followers. "Big announcement tomorrow. The future will shock you." It was a simple sentence, but it created a storm of anticipation. Comments poured in. Investors speculated about new partnerships and expansion plans. The crypto community waited eagerly for the live stream scheduled the next morning. Inside his glass mansion, the lights glowed late into the night. Daniel was seen pacing in his home office by a neighbor walking a dog. His car remained parked in the driveway. Everything seemed normal. No one knew that this would be the last time Daniel Reyes would ever be seen as the confident crypto millionaire who promised to lead others into the future. By sunrise, he would be gone. The morning after Daniel Reyes promised to shock the world, everything felt wrong. At exactly 9 o'clock, thousands of investors logged into Novosphere's website, waiting for the live stream to begin. The countdown clock on the homepage had reached 0, but instead of Daniel's familiar face appearing on the screen, the page refreshed and displayed an error message. Within seconds, the entire website went offline. At first, people assumed it was a technical issue. Crypto platforms often experienced heavy traffic during major announcements. Social media filled with comments asking if anyone else was having trouble accessing the site. Daniel's most loyal followers reassured others that it was probably just server overload. But as the minutes passed, something deeper began to settle into people's stomachs. Daniel had never been late. He was known for his discipline. He often joined live streams 5 minutes early just to greet viewers and test audio levels. By 9:30, his phone went straight to voicemail. His personal assistant tried calling repeatedly. There was no answer. Emails bounced back. Even his messaging apps showed no recent activity. Around 10 in the morning, Mark Sullivan, a retired firefighter who had invested nearly his entire retirement fund into Novosphere, decided he could not sit still any longer. He lived about 30 minutes away from Daniel's mansion. He told himself he was only going to check if everything was okay. Maybe Daniel was sick. Maybe something had happened during the night. When Mark arrived at the gated entrance, he noticed something strange. The main gate was slightly open. Daniel was known for strict security. The gate usually required a code, and it closed automatically. Mark hesitated before driving through. The driveway curved toward the modern glass mansion, its large windows reflecting the bright Texas sun. From a distance, the house looked peaceful. But as Mark parked near the entrance, he noticed the front door was unlocked. He stepped inside and called out Daniel's name. His voice echoed across the polished marble floors. The lights were still on in the kitchen and living room. On the counter sat Daniel's laptop, open but asleep. A half-empty glass of water rested beside it. A chair was slightly pulled back, as if someone had stood up in a hurry. Mark felt his chest tighten. He walked slowly through the house, calling Daniel's name again. The bedroom upstairs looked untouched. The bed was neatly made. In the walk-in closet, expensive suits hung perfectly aligned. On a dresser sat several luxury watches, including the one Daniel had proudly shown during a recent interview. Mark opened the drawer beside the bed. Daniel's passport was there. That was when fear turned into panic. Mark stepped outside and called the police. Officers arrived within minutes. They secured the property and began examining every room carefully. There were no signs of forced entry, no broken glass, no overturned furniture. Nothing suggested a struggle. Yet Daniel Reyes was gone. Detectives quickly noticed something else unusual. The security camera system that monitored the exterior of the mansion had stopped recording at exactly 2:13 a.m. The footage did not show anyone entering or leaving after midnight. It simply cut to black. Technicians examined the system and confirmed it had not been damaged. It appeared to have been manually shut down from inside the house. At 2:14 a.m., just 1 minute after the cameras went dark, something extraordinary happened on the blockchain. Millions of dollars worth of cryptocurrency were transferred out of Novosphere's main wallets. The transactions were precise and rapid. Within seconds, the funds were split into dozens of smaller amounts and sent to different digital addresses. From there, they were moved again and again, traveling through complex chains designed to make tracking nearly impossible. By the time investigators realized what had happened, the money had already disappeared into the digital maze. News spread fast. Local reporters gathered outside the mansion, broadcasting live updates. Crypto millionaire missing flashed across headlines. Investors across the country stared at their screens in disbelief as their account dashboards showed zero balances. Some still believed there had to be a simple explanation. Perhaps Daniel had been kidnapped. Perhaps hackers had forced him to transfer the funds before taking him away. Police began treating the case as a potential abduction. Neighbors were interviewed. One neighbor recalled hearing what sounded like a car driving away in the early hours of the morning, but that was not unusual in a wealthy area where residents often kept late schedules. Another neighbor mentioned seeing lights on in Daniel's office around 2 in the morning. There were no witnesses to any suspicious activity. Investigators examined Daniel's phone records. His last outgoing call had been at 11:48 p.m. to his chief technical officer. The call lasted only 3 minutes. According to the CTO, Daniel sounded calm. He simply reminded him about the morning announcement. His phone's last recorded location was inside the mansion at 1:57 a.m. After that, it appeared to have been powered off. The police brought in digital forensic experts to analyze the laptop found in the kitchen. It revealed that Daniel had logged into the Novosphere wallet management system shortly before 2 in the morning. There were no signs of external hacking. The transfers appeared to have been authorized using his personal security keys. That discovery shifted the direction of the investigation. If Daniel had authorized the transfers himself, why? Was he forced? Threatened? Or was he planning something? As investigators searched deeper, they found a small but important clue in the garage. Daniel's Lamborghini was still parked inside. So was his SUV. But there was space in the driveway where a third vehicle had once been. Records showed Daniel had rented a black sedan 2 days earlier. The rental agreement listed a return date 3 days in the future. The rental company confirmed the vehicle had not yet been retained. That information sparked a new theory. Perhaps Daniel had left voluntarily. But the passport in the drawer complicated everything. How could he leave the country without it? And why leave behind millions in luxury belongings if he planned to dissipate? The FBI joined the case within 48 hours because of the massive financial losses involved. Agents began tracing the cryptocurrency transactions across international exchanges. They contacted platforms in Asia, Europe, and South America, requesting urgent freezes on suspicious accounts. Meanwhile, Novosphere employees were questioned. Several admitted they had limited access to the company's financial systems. Daniel had insisted on controlling the primary private keys himself. He had claimed it was the safest way to prevent internal fraud. One employee remembered Daniel acting unusually tense during the week before his disappearance. He had canceled meetings and spent long hours alone in his office. When asked if everything was okay, He simply replied, "Big moves require big risks." Investors grew angrier by the day. Online forums filled with accusations. Some believed Daniel had orchestrated an elaborate exit scam. Others were convinced he had been targeted by criminals who wanted access to his wealth. Then another twist emerged. Traffic cameras near the neighborhood captured a black sedan leaving the area at 2:26 a.m. on the night Daniel vanished. The license plate matched the rental vehicle registered in his name. The footage showed only the back of the car. The driver's face could not be seen. The vehicle was later found abandoned in a long-term parking lot near a small private airport just outside Austin. Airport security logs showed that a private jet had taken off at 3:05 a.m., bound for the Caribbean. The passenger manifest listed a single name that no one recognized: Miguel Alvarez. As investigators connected the dots, a disturbing possibility began to form. The timing of the security cameras shutting off, the crypto transfers, the rental car, and the private jet departure all aligned too perfectly to be coincidence. Daniel Reyes had either been forced to orchestrate his own disappearance with extreme precision, or he had planned it himself. But one question continued to haunt everyone involved. If this was an escape, why make it so dramatic? Why leave the house looking normal, as if he might return at any moment? Why keep his passport in the drawer? Why allow just enough clues to suggest both kidnapping and fraud? The mansion remained silent as days turned into weeks. The lights were eventually turned off. The glass walls reflected only the empty driveway. And somewhere beyond the headlines, beyond the panic and accusations, the crypto millionaire who once promised to shock the world had done exactly that. He had vanished overnight, taking millions with him, and leaving behind nothing but questions. As weeks passed after Daniel Reyes vanished, the mystery surrounding Novosphere deepened. At first, investigators focused on finding Daniel. But slowly, the attention shifted toward the company he had built and the system he had controlled so tightly. The FBI assembled a financial crimes task force in Austin. Agents filled a conference room with whiteboards covered in wallet addresses, transaction timelines, and printed screenshots from Novosphere's website. What had once looked like a brilliant crypto empire was beginning to look fragile under close examination. Former employees were called in for long interviews. Many were young programmers who had joined Novosphere believing they were part of a revolutionary financial platform. They described Daniel as charismatic but extremely private. He kept certain systems restricted. He handled the main crypto wallets himself and rarely explained the full structure of the company's finances. One software engineer admitted something that immediately caught investigators' attention. The so-called advanced trading algorithm that Daniel promoted so confidently did not exist in the way investors believed. There was basic trading software connected to crypto exchanges, but it was not powerful or unique. It certainly was not capable of guaranteeing steady returns during volatile markets. When agents compared Novosphere's claimed profits with actual market conditions, the numbers did not align. During certain months when cryptocurrency prices had crashed sharply, Novosphere had still reported consistent gains that defied normal trading behavior. The deeper investigators dug, the clearer a troubling pattern became. Money from new investors had often been used to pay profits to earlier investors. The structure resembled a classic Ponzi scheme, though wrapped in modern crypto language. But something did not fully fit the usual pattern. In most Ponzi schemes, the operator eventually collapses under pressure when withdrawals exceed deposits. In Novosphere's case, the system had been growing rapidly. New money continued flowing in. Daniel did not seem cornered or desperate in public appearances. This raised a new question. If Novosphere was designed to fail, why did Daniel disappear when the company was still expanding? As agents traced the stolen cryptocurrency across the blockchain, they discovered that Daniel had moved funds with incredible precision. The transfers were executed in a way that showed technical expertise. The money was broken into smaller pieces, passed through mixing services designed to hide transaction trails, and then reassembled in wallets that appeared clean. This was not panic. It was preparation. Meanwhile, the private jet flight connected to the name Miguel Alvarez became a central focus. Investigators contacted the small Caribbean nation that had issued the passport under that name. Records confirmed that an application had been approved 3 months before Daniel vanished. The investment required to obtain that second citizenship was significant, and the payment had been made in cryptocurrency. The application included photographs that resembled Daniel, though slightly altered with facial hair and different styling. The signature matched his handwriting. When this information became public through a leaked news report, investor outrage exploded. Many now believed Daniel had planned his disappearance long in advance. However, just as the case seemed to be pointing clearly toward fraud, a strange twist emerged. One of Novosphere's junior analysts came forward with a story he had been too afraid to share earlier. He claimed that a week before Daniel vanished, he overheard a heated phone conversation inside Daniel's office. Daniel's voice had been louder than usual. He sounded angry, even frightened. The analyst said Daniel repeated one sentence several times. "You can't threaten me. I built this." Investigators pressed for more details, but the analyst could not identify who Daniel had been speaking to. There were no recordings of the call. Phone records showed no unusual numbers at that time, suggesting the conversation may have taken place through encrypted communication apps. That revelation complicated the narrative once again. If Daniel had been acting alone, why did he seem afraid? And who could possibly threaten someone who controlled millions in digital assets? Federal agents began exploring the possibility that Novosphere had attracted attention from larger, more dangerous players in the crypto world. Organized cybercrime groups often targeted wealthy crypto entrepreneurs. Extortion schemes were not uncommon. Agents searched Daniel's laptop more thoroughly and discovered encrypted folders hidden within hidden partitions. After days of work, forensic specialists managed to access fragments of deleted files. Among them were documents outlining private investment deals with anonymous backers. These backers had contributed large sums to Novosphere in exchange for higher guaranteed returns. The agreements were informal and not disclosed to the public. The investors' names were replaced with code words, but transaction records connected some of the wallets to offshore entities previously investigated for money laundering. It appeared Daniel had entered into risky partnerships to expand his company faster. One document contained a warning written in Daniel's own notes. It read, "High risk. If markets turn, pressure will be extreme." Around the same time, blockchain analysts discovered that a portion of the stolen funds had briefly passed through a wallet associated with an Eastern European exchange known for weak regulatory oversight. That exchange had previously been linked to cybercriminal networks. International authorities were contacted. The exchange claimed it had no record of suspicious activity, but investigators suspected cooperation was limited. The media began presenting two competing theories. One portrayed Daniel as a cold mastermind who built a modern Ponzi scheme and executed a flawless escape. The other suggested he may have been caught in a web of powerful investors and criminal groups who forced him to transfer the money before disappearing. Public opinion split sharply. Some former supporters defended Daniel passionately online, insisting he would never betray ordinary investors. Others shared stories of their financial devastation and demanded the harshest punishment possible if he was found alive. Meanwhile, Daniel's parents remained silent. They told reporters they had not heard from their son since the night before he vanished. His mother tearfully insisted that Daniel loved his family and would never willingly disappear without explanation. Investigators reviewed security footage from surrounding neighborhoods again and again. No vehicles besides the rental sedan appeared suspicious. No unknown individuals were seen approaching the mansion. The rental car itself was examined for forensic evidence. Inside, police found a single fingerprint on the steering wheel that matched Daniel. There were no signs of struggle. No second set of prints suggested a passenger. In the trunk, investigators found a gym bag containing casual clothing, a prepaid mobile phone, and a small hardware device commonly used to store cryptocurrency offline. The device had been wiped clean. The discovery of the prepaid phone led to another breakthrough. Phone records showed it had been activated 2 weeks before Daniel vanished. It had been used only a few times, mainly to contact a number registered in Portugal. Portuguese authorities were notified, but the number had already been disconnected. Each new clue seemed to confirm planning and intention. Daniel had acquired a second passport, rented a car, activated a burner phone, and moved funds carefully. These were not the actions of someone taken by surprise. Yet the overheard argument and the mysterious offshore backers kept the possibility of external pressure alive. As investigators mapped out the timeline, they noticed something chilling. The crypto transfers began precisely 60 seconds after the security cameras were manually shut down. The laptop activity logs showed Daniel typing commands calmly and steadily. There were no signs of rushed behavior. Whoever had executed those transfers was not under immediate physical threat. The task force leader addressed his team one evening with a quiet conclusion forming in his mind. If Daniel was being threatened, he said, he was threatened long before that night. The theory began to shift. Perhaps Daniel had built Novosphere on unstable ground. Perhaps he had promised powerful investors unrealistic returns. If the market turned or withdrawals increased, he might have faced pressure he could not handle. Instead of waiting for collapse, he may have chosen control. Control over the narrative. Control over the money. Control over his own disappearance. By staging elements that suggested kidnapping, leaving behind his primary passport, and allowing just enough mystery to exist, Daniel created confusion. Confusion bought time. But time for what? As Chapter 3 of the investigation unfolded, one fact became undeniable. Novosphere was not the transparent, advanced trading platform Daniel had advertised. It was a structure built on secrecy, risky deals, and careful manipulation. Whether Daniel was a victim of dangerous forces or the architect of a calculated escape, the dark side of Novosphere had been exposed. And somewhere, possibly under a new name and new identity, the man who once stood on stage promising financial freedom was watching the chaos he had left behind, knowing that every digital step he had taken would eventually be traced. The only question was when the trail would finally lead to him. By the 6th month after Daniel Reyes vanished, the story had grown from a financial scandal into an international mystery. News channels replayed the same footage of his glass mansion in Austin, the abandoned rental car near the private airport, and the frozen Novosphere website. Investors had stopped hoping for a simple explanation. Now they wanted answers, and more importantly, justice. The FBI officially classified Daniel as a fugitive, but there was still no confirmed proof that he was alive. The second passport under the name Miguel Alvarez pointed toward escape, yet no immigration records showed that identity entering or leaving any major country after the private jet landed in the Caribbean. It was as if the man had stepped off the plane and dissolved into thin air. The investigation team divided into two tracks. One group continued tracing cryptocurrency movements across global exchanges. The other focused on Daniel's personal connections and possible hideouts. They analyzed his browsing history, past travel patterns, and even his favorite books and podcasts, searching for clues about where he might run if he wanted to disappear completely. Investors were growing restless. Several had filed lawsuits against Novosphere's remaining corporate shell. Daniel's assets in the United States were frozen, but most of the stolen crypto remained out of reach. Every day that passed made recovery less likely. Then, just as public interest began to fade slightly, something unexpected happened. Claire Whitman, an investigative journalist known for exposing financial fraud, received an anonymous email late one evening. Claire had been following the Novosphere case closely. She had written several detailed articles questioning Daniel's trading claims and highlighting the inconsistencies in the company's reported profits. The email arrived from an encrypted address. The subject line contained only 3 words, "You were right." Claire almost ignored it, assuming it was another tip from a frustrated investor. But when she opened the message, her heart began to race. The sender claimed to be Daniel Reyes. The message was short but direct. It stated that Daniel had not stolen the money for personal greed. Instead, he claimed he had been forced to move the funds by powerful individuals who were threatening him. He wrote that Novosphere had attracted dangerous attention from international investors who were not what they seemed. "I built something bigger than I understood," the email said. "When the market turned, they wanted guarantees I could not provide. They said if I failed them, I would disappear. So I disappeared first." Attached to the email was a video file. Claire hesitated before pressing play. The video showed Daniel sitting in what looked like a small apartment. The walls were plain white. A single window behind him revealed a narrow European street. Daniel looked thinner. His hair was longer, and there were dark circles under his eyes. He wore a simple gray hoodie instead of the tailored suits he once favored. He spoke calmly but with visible tension. "They think I'm a criminal mastermind," he said. "But the truth is more complicated. I made mistakes. I partnered with people I shouldn't have trusted. When the crypto market became unstable, they demanded their money back immediately. I couldn't pay them without collapsing the entire system. He paused, rubbing his hands together. They told me accidents happen, that people dissipate. I knew I was next. Daniel claimed he had staged his disappearance to protect himself. He insisted he planned to return the funds once he was safe. He ended the video by saying he was working with international lawyers to expose the individuals who had pressured him. I didn't run because I'm guilty, he concluded. I ran because I wanted to stay alive. The video ended abruptly. Claire replayed it 3 times. It was convincing. Daniel's voice sounded genuine. His body language appeared nervous, not arrogant. If it was an act, it was well performed. She immediately contacted the FBI. Digital forensic experts analyzed the email headers and traced the message to an internet connection in Lisbon, Portugal. The signal had originated from a residential apartment building in the historic Alfama district. Portuguese authorities were notified within hours. By the time local police reached the apartment, the room was empty. Inside, they found minimal furniture, a foldable table, and a laptop connected to the Wi-Fi network. The laptop contained no personal files. Its hard drive had been professionally wiped. There were no fingerprints. The landlord claimed the apartment had been rented for 2 months by a man using a Portuguese identification card under the name Miguel Alvarez. The description matched Daniel's general build, but the renter had paid in cash and avoided long conversations. Security cameras from nearby shops showed a hooded figure entering and leaving the building several times over the past weeks. The face was never clearly visible. The case had just taken a dramatic turn. The video suggested Daniel was alive and operating from Europe, but the speed at which the apartment was abandoned indicated careful planning. He seemed to anticipate that authorities would track the message. Back in the United States, public reaction shifted once again. Some investors began to question whether Daniel had indeed been threatened. Online forums filled with debates. Was he a victim trapped in a dangerous web of international crime? Or was he manipulating emotions to buy sympathy? The FBI examined the video closely. Background sounds were enhanced. Experts identified faint church bells and distant street musicians, confirming it was likely filmed in Lisbon. Lighting analysis showed no signs of digital manipulation. However, one detail stood out. The timestamp metadata revealed the video had been recorded nearly 3 weeks before it was sent. That meant Daniel had prepared the message in advance. Agents also noticed something else. During the video, Daniel briefly glanced to his right, as if checking something off camera. The reflection in the window behind him showed a faint outline of what appeared to be a second person standing nearby. The image was blurry, but it raised serious questions. If Daniel was hiding alone, who was that? Investigators began exploring whether Daniel had accomplices. Perhaps someone had helped him move the funds. Perhaps someone was now helping him stay hidden. Financial analysts reviewing the blockchain activity noticed that after months of silence, small amounts of the stolen cryptocurrency were being quietly consolidated into fewer wallets. The movements were subtle and spaced weeks apart. It suggested someone was still actively managing the funds. The Lisbon lead eventually went cold. Portuguese authorities could not locate Miguel Alvarez in any official records beyond the temporary apartment rental. Airport logs showed no one under that name departing the country after the email was sent. It was as if Daniel had once again vanished moments before capture. But the video left a psychological impact. It humanized him. Instead of the confident crypto millionaire, viewers saw a man who appeared tired and possibly afraid. Claire Whitman published an in-depth article including still frames from the video. She questioned whether Daniel was telling the truth about powerful investors threatening him. She also raised the possibility that he was crafting a narrative to reduce potential prison time if captured. Weeks later, Claire received a second message. This time, it contained only one line. They are closer than you think. No video was attached. The message could not be traced. The investigation entered a new phase. Agents considered whether Daniel might be attempting to negotiate indirectly through media. Perhaps he was testing reactions before deciding his next move. Then a surprising discovery shook the case again. Blockchain analysts uncovered that a small test transaction from one of the stolen wallets had been sent to a charity donation platform based in Austin, Texas. The amount was tiny, less than $10, but it was significant because it indicated the wallet was still active. More importantly, The transaction was processed using a local IP address. Authorities traced the internet signal to a public Wi-Fi network inside a cafe just 15 minutes from Daniel's old mansion. Surveillance footage from that cafe showed a man sitting alone in the corner, wearing a baseball cap and glasses. He kept his head down, typing on a laptop. His beard was thicker, and his hair appeared darker. But facial recognition software indicated a high probability match with Daniel Reyes. The timestamp matched the crypto transaction exactly. After months of chasing international leads, the possibility emerged that Daniel had never been fired at all. The Lisbon video, the second passport, the private jet flight, and the dramatic message may have been carefully designed to send investigators across continents while he remained hidden closer to home. The message from nowhere had done its job. It created confusion. It reignited sympathy. It bought him more time. But that tiny transaction, that almost meaningless digital movement, had quietly exposed the truth. The hunt was no longer international. It was local. When the FBI confirmed that the small cryptocurrency transaction had originated from a cafe in Austin, the entire investigation shifted overnight. For months, agents had chased digital trails across continents, coordinated with foreign governments, and analyzed encrypted messages from Europe. Now the possibility stood before them like a quiet insult. Daniel Reyes might have been hiding in plain sight. The cafe sat on a quiet street lined with trees and small boutiques. It was less than 15 minutes from the glass mansion he once called home. Investigators obtained full surveillance footage from the day of the transaction. They watched hours of recordings until they found him. He entered at 2:11 p.m., wearing a dark baseball cap, thin-frame glasses, and a jacket that seemed too heavy for the Texas heat. He kept his head lowered but not in a nervous way. It was controlled, almost calculated. He ordered a coffee, paid in cash, and chose a seat in the far corner where the security camera angle was weakest. At 2:19 p.m., he opened a laptop. At 2:23 p.m., the small crypto transaction was executed. At 2:26 p.m., he closed the laptop, left the empty cup on the table, and walked out calmly. Facial recognition software compared the footage to hundreds of images of Daniel. The probability match was over 95%. The beard and darker hair altered his appearance, but the structure of his face, the way he walked, and even a small scar near his left eyebrow were identical. Agents did not move immediately. They did not want to alert him. Instead, they began monitoring the cafe and surrounding area quietly, reviewing nearby traffic cameras and license plate readers. The breakthrough came when a street camera captured the man walking 3 blocks away before entering a modest apartment building. He did not use a key at the front door. Instead, he waited for another resident to exit and slipped inside behind them. Investigators pulled property records and rental agreements for the building. One unit had been rented 6 months earlier under the name Adrian Mendez. The identification used for the lease appeared legitimate, but deeper checks revealed it was a high-quality fake. Utility bills were paid in cash through prepaid cards. There was no linked employment history, no social media presence. It was the kind of identity built to survive quietly. Surveillance began immediately. Agents monitored the building from unmarked vehicles. They watched for patterns. The man matching Daniel's description left the apartment twice a week, usually late in the evening. He visited grocery stores, always paying cash. He avoided crowded areas and never used a smartphone in public. He was disciplined. Inside the apartment, investigators suspected he had the hardware wallets containing the stolen cryptocurrency. But they needed proof before moving in. Over the next 2 weeks, blockchain analysts observed several more tiny transactions from the same wallet cluster. Each time, the transactions were routed through complex mixing services before settling in fresh addresses. The movements were careful, spaced days apart, as if someone was testing access while trying to remain invisible. Each transaction corresponded with Daniel's visits to public Wi-Fi locations around the city. The evidence was building quietly. On a humid Thursday morning, federal agents decided it was time. At 5:42 a.m., while most of Austin was still asleep, a tactical team surrounded the apartment building. 2 agents knocked firmly on the door of the unit registered to Adrian Mendez. There was silence. They knocked again, announcing themselves. Inside, a chair scraped against the floor. Then the door opened slowly. Daniel Reyes stood there. He did not run. He did not argue. He simply looked at the agents as if he had been expecting them. His beard was trimmed shorter than in the cafe footage. His hair was dyed a darker brown. But there was no mistaking him. His eyes held the same calm confidence he had displayed on stage during Novosphere's launch events. "You found me," he said quietly. Inside the apartment, agents discovered exactly what they feared. On a small desk near the window sat 2 laptops, several encrypted USB drives, and 3 hardware wallets used for storing cryptocurrency offline. There were stacks of cash hidden inside kitchen cabinets. Fake identification cards lay neatly organized in a drawer. The room was minimal, almost empty. A mattress on the floor. A folding table. A single chair. It was not the life of a frightened man hiding from dangerous criminals. It was the life of someone waiting patiently. Daniel was taken into custody without resistance. During questioning, he remained calm and composed. At first, he repeated parts of the story from the Lisbon video. He claimed powerful investors had pressured him. He said he feared for his safety. But investigators had already uncovered too much. They confronted him with the evidence of the staged passport purchase, the prepaid phone activated weeks before his disappearance, and the rental car abandoned strategically near the private airport. They showed him the metadata from the Lisbon video proving it had been recorded long before it was sent. They presented forensic reports indicating no one else had accessed his systems during the night of the crypto transfers. The narrative began to collapse. After hours of silence, Daniel finally leaned back in his chair and exhaled slowly. There were no threats, he admitted. He explained that Novosphere had grown faster than he expected. At first, he believed he could manage the system. He convinced himself that he would eventually develop real trading tools to support the promised returns. But as more money flowed in, the structure became fragile. It required constant new investment to survive. He realized that if a market crash triggered mass withdrawals, the entire operation would collapse publicly. He would face prison, humiliation, and financial ruin. So he began planning. He purchased the second passport months in advance, not because he intended to flee permanently, but because it would create the illusion of international escape. He rented the car and timed the security camera shutdown precisely. He moved the cryptocurrency himself, executing transactions with careful attention to blockchain tracking techniques. The private jet passenger under the name Miguel Alvarez was not him. It was an associate paid to travel using the passport while wearing clothing and accessories designed to resemble Daniel's build. The goal was simple: create a trail convincing enough to mislead investigators for months. The Lisbon apartment had also been part of the plan. Daniel hired a contact overseas to rent the space temporarily and record background footage. He later edited himself into that environment using practical staging techniques and pre-recorded clips. The reflection suggesting another person in the video was, in fact, his assistant adjusting lighting during filming in Austin. Every detail had been designed to produce confusion. "I didn't want to disappear completely," Daniel said during interrogation. "I wanted to become a mystery." He believed that by creating multiple competing narratives, kidnapping, international crime pressure, offshore investors, he could slow down the investigation. He thought authorities would focus on foreign leads while he remained hidden locally under a low-profile identity. When asked why he stayed in Austin instead of leaving the country for real, Daniel gave a surprising answer. "It's the last place they'd look," he said. "Everyone assumes the criminal runs." He described how he spent months living quietly, rarely using the internet except through public networks. He moved small portions of the cryptocurrency periodically to maintain control. He intended to wait several years before attempting to access larger sums through offshore exchanges. The tiny donation transaction that ultimately exposed him was a mistake. He claimed he wanted to test whether investigators were still actively monitoring the wallets. "They were," he said with a faint smile. News of Daniel's arrest spread rapidly. Investors gathered outside the federal courthouse during his first appearance. Some shouted angrily. Others simply watched in silence. For many, the damage had already been done. Retirement funds were gone. College savings had vanished. Trust had been broken. In court, prosecutors presented overwhelming digital evidence. They demonstrated how the Novosphere platform had falsified returns. They showed how investor money was redistributed to create the illusion of profit. They mapped the blockchain movements in precise detail, illustrating the calculated timing of the final transfers. Daniel's defense attempted to argue that he had intended to return the funds once the market stabilized. But the presence of fake identities, staged international clues, and carefully wiped devices undermined that claim. During sentencing, several victims addressed the court. A retired teacher described selling her home after losing her life savings. A small business owner explained how he had trusted Daniel because he seemed transparent and honest. Daniel listened without expression. The judge described the case as a modern fraud built on technology but driven by an old motive, greed mixed with ego. He emphasized that Daniel's attempt to turn his disappearance into a legend showed a disturbing desire for control and attention. Daniel Reyes was sentenced to decades in federal prison for wire fraud, securities fraud, and money laundering. Authorities managed to recover a significant portion of the stolen cryptocurrency from the hardware wallets found in the apartment. However, due to the volatility of crypto markets and complex transfers, not all funds were retrievable. Many investors received only partial compensation. The glass mansion was sold. The Lamborghini was auctioned. Novosphere became a cautionary tale discussed in financial seminars and documentaries. From a prison interview months later, Daniel reflected on his decisions. He admitted that he had become addicted to the image of success. The praise, the interviews, the luxury lifestyle, it fed something inside him. When he realized it might collapse, he could not accept the humiliation. "I thought I could outsmart everyone," he said quietly. "I forgot that technology remembers." In the end, it was not a dramatic international raid or a secret criminal organization that brought him down. It was a transaction smaller than the price of a cup of coffee. In the world of cryptocurrency, every movement leaves a digital footprint. No matter how complex the route, no matter how carefully planned the escape, the blockchain records everything. Daniel Reyes had built his empire on that very technology, and it was the same technology that ensured he could never truly vanish.